Hey Nukenites! The round of 16 of the Tving OSL is finally here. And if you've been following pro scene news as of late, since I've done a pretty bad job of relaying it in my commentaries, you'll know that this may be the last Brood War OSL. The pro scene is gearing up for a full StarCraft 2 transition, and during a recent meeting, KESPA officials were saying, well, they said a couple of things. First of all, they said, this will be the last OSL. Next, they said, this might not be the last OSL. So as usual, KESPA impossible to figure out. But I'm going to work with the assumption that this will be the last Brood War OSL. It's just so exciting, you know? High stakes matchups. The last shot for glory. But anyway, let me explain to you how the round of 16 works. The round of 16 is divided into 4 groups, and there's 4 players in each of the 4 groups. The groups are headed up by the semi-finalists from last season. So we have JangBi's group, Fantasy's group, Sue's group, and Hydra's group. And the 2 players with the most wins in each of these groups moves out into the round of 8. This system does allow for tiebreakers, and we see them pretty often at the end of round of 16s. I'm going to lay these groups out and give you my own predictions about which 2 players I think will move out of the groups, but I want you to leave your predictions too, because I read them in my commentaries before games. And don't just give me a list of names, I want something I can actually use here. Although I do find explosions of fanboyism to be more than appropriate. Go Stork! First, I'm going to show you the complete set of maps for the rest of the OSL. Our new addition is New Sniper Ridge. Sniper Ridge is a pretty balanced map, not so much in ZVP, it's heavily favored in Zerg's favor against Protoss, but the rest of the matches seem to be fine. Next up is Neo-Electric Circuit, which doesn't really have enough games played on it to get a full grasp of its balance issues, but TVZ, there have been enough TVZ games played to show that it is heavily favored for Terran against Zerg. 86% in favor to be precise, and that's out of about 15 games. So we'll see if Zerg can find a way to overcome that. Then we have returning favorite Gladiator. Not too many problems with this map besides a skewed PVT rate. It is favored for Protoss against Terran, but the rest of the matches seem pretty even. And lastly, we have Neo Ground Zero. Now, Ground Zero was a Terran favored map, so I'm interested to see what the changes will be to Neo Ground Zero. So those are the maps. Now, let's look at the guys who will be playing on those maps. Group A, JangBi's group. Got JangBi, Action, Flash, and Bogus. Now, I bet everyone $1 Monopoly dollar that Flash would end up in JangBi's group, so I expect you all to pay up. That will be a pretty great rematch, because JangBi is the one who knocked Flash out of the Gen Air OSL on his way to the top. This group does unfortunately have a team kill in it. You got 2 KT Ulster guys, Action and Flash. Will have to play one another, so it's always sad when you see the teams having to eliminate one another, but them's the breaks. It's nice to see Bogus finally make it to a round of 16, but both Bogus and Action are pretty inconsistent players, especially as of late. They both have a lot of potential, of course, but potential doesn't mean much when you're squared off against 2 of the best players on the scene. That is why I'm picking JangBi and Flash as my 2 players to move out of Group A. Safe choices, of course, but right choices! At least until the Nuke the Stars curse kicks in. Now let's take a look at Group B, Fantasy's group. It's Fantasy and 3 potential Royal Roaders. Grape, Rush, and Mini have never made it into an OSL, so they're all fighting for a Royal Road, which is winning your first OSL from the ground up. This OSL has a lot of fresh faces in it, but that's what happens when you have 6 to 7 months between tournaments. There's always a lot of turnaround in OSL, but it usually happens more gradually, because the space between seasons is usually shorter. But this time we get an influx of fresh talent. Fantasy's a safe bet in a group like this, and I feel Mini and Rush haven't really shown enough games to really show their true talent. Although I did watch the dual tournament games for both, and Mini especially is quite good. He showed strong harassment-focused games with some good multitasking to boot. But still, for my second pick, I think I'm going to have to go with someone with a little bit more experience. Plus, it's a Samsung Con Protoss. How can you go wrong? Fantasy and Grape are my 2 choices to move out of Group B. Now let's look at Group C, C for Chaos, because this is another all-Zerg group. ZVZ is always an unpredictable matchup, but in this particular group we actually have 3 guys who are very good at it. Let's take a look at the ZVZ win rate for each of these players. As you can tell, SoulKey, Hydra, and Shine all have abnormally high ZVZ, and Hyvaa is the odd man out here. He's probably going to have a tough time keeping up with these guys. Everybody knows Hydra won his MSL through a ZVZ final, but my 2 choices to move out of this group don't include Hydra. I'm choosing SoulKey because of his ferocious play in the last Pro League. He's been a very strong player as of late, probably the best performing Zerg recently. And Shine's ZVZ stats actually surprised me. I knew he was good at ZVZ, but looking up the stats I was like, wow, didn't know he was that good. So those are my 2 choices to move out of Group C, SoulKey and Shine. But I wouldn't be surprised if Hydra took one of those spots as well. Now let's take a look at Group D, Sue's group. This is probably my favorite group of the 4, and not just for the reason that you're thinking right now, but for the fact that this is going to be a PvZ marathon. A lot of great Protoss vs Zerg games are going to come out of this group, I guarantee it. I thought about who might win this group for a long time, because I was getting to the end of it and I wanted to make at least one bold prediction, but I couldn't do it. I gotta go with the safe choices again. Stork and Zero have both shown themselves extremely great players, and I just can't see Harang 2 and Sue doing much about that. Zero's versus Protoss should give him enough of an edge to defeat both Stork and Harang, and Stork's versatility should give him the tools he needs to defeat Harang and Sue. So there you have it, the OSL Round of 16. The schedule for this thing will be Tuesdays and Wednesdays, which is very odd for the OSL, and it's kind of a cramped schedule. They're changing things up even more with the Round of 8 after this, which will actually last longer than the Round of 16. So I'm excited about all of this. Can you feel the intensity? Can you hear the war drum? Anyway, this has been Nuke. Make sure to leave your predictions in the comments section below, and I will see you for a very fun rest of the OSL coming up soon. See you guys then.